Hey, we're going to take a little break here and talk about interstate batteries. Now, if you're like me, enjoying the great outdoors, you need gear that is as reliable as it gets. That's why I power my adventures with interstate batteries. I use interstate batteries in my boats. I use interstate batteries in my camper. Great for your truck, too. From Alaska to Montana, they're outrageously dependable. Battery is essential. With over 150,000 dealer locations, finding one is easy. For all your vehicles, land or sea, choose Interstate. Head to interstatebatteries.com and find your power today.
Outdoor adventure won't wait for engine problems. Things like hard starts, rough performance, and lost fuel economy are often caused by fuel gum and varnish buildup. Seafoam can help your engine run better and last longer. Simply pour a can in your gas tank. Hunters and anglers rely on Seafoam to keep their engines running the way it should the entire season. Pick up a can of Seafoam today at your local auto parts store or visit seafoamworks.com to learn more.
46% of Americans expect to leave behind financial obligations when they pass away. So it's crucial to make sure your family is financially protected. Policy Genius helps you find the right life insurance coverage by comparing options from America's top insurers with help from licensed, award-winning agents. Secure your financial future with Policy Genius. Head to policygenius.com to get free life insurance quotes in just a few clicks. That's policygenius.com.
Welcome back to another episode of Cutting the Distance Podcast. I'm Dirk Durham, and tonight I've got Josh Boyd in the house. Welcome to the show, Josh.
Thanks, Dirk. It's good to be chatting with you again.
Yeah, you guys might remember Josh from episode 75. That's where I referred to Josh as the elk master. And we kind of dove pretty deep in on his bio and his persona of being a elk hunting mountain man type of machine. But tonight I wanted to have Josh on here just to say, he's not a one-trick pony. Josh, he likes to hunt bears too. And, he lives in the beautiful state of Montana. And I just thought I'd kind of pick his brain a little bit about it. It's spring is in the air. Spring is kind of sprung about everywhere in the West, I think. What's it doing up where you're at?
Oh, it's definitely sprung. Things are getting really green. I was just noticing today, I was out at work and the hillside, the lower hillsides are greening up. A lot of flowers are popping, a lot of green grass. The snow line's moving up quite a bit. And spring is here. Matter of fact, yesterday at work was my final day of snow surveys. No. So that always, for me, marks the beginning of spring bear season. When I knock out the end of April snow surveys, it's like, all right, it's time to start thinking about bears.
Yeah.
So it's nice. We got a lot of rain. Things are greening up today. It's going to be like popping really, really hardcore here in the next couple weeks.
Yeah. Do you think you're ahead of schedule this year on springtime, or you like normal? You think?
Oh yeah, we're way ahead. I'd say we're at least 3 weeks ahead of our normal melt out from what I've seen. The snowpack numbers are showing that. The snow line is showing that at the elevation that you look at up on the mountainside. I'm seeing snow. I can look out my window and see the snow line on the mountains over there. And that's where I'm seeing it right now is typically like probably the second week of May would be more normal to what it is right now. So we're definitely a couple weeks advanced snow melt.
Right on. Yeah. I've been talking to people, other places of the Northwest, and they had kind of the same thought that we're a little bit ahead of schedule. In fact, Phelps and I were out in Kansas turkey hunting here last week. And even back there, things are more progressed than normal. It's just seemed like we've been there. Typically we go out there turkey hunting in like May, middle of May to late May. And, the green up and everything is about what it is right now. In fact, we were finding turkey nests with eggs in them already. And the toms weren't all henned up. There was like hens that would come out into fields, single hens, and come out and feed a little bit and then go back and get on their nests and stuff. Whereas a lot of times they're this early, they're just henned up, more than you really want them to be. So it seems like, maybe things are a little bit ahead this year. So what's that mean for bear hunting?
Well, I mean, people get pretty excited about green grass and bears for good reasons. And I'm one of those people, but there's a point where it's like too much green grass can be a little detrimental to trying to find bears. Because if everything is really green, it can be pretty much everywhere.
Right.
But I would say, I don't know. I still focus when I'm looking for bears. I'm still focusing on the fresh shoots that are kind of emerging as the snow line recedes up the mountain. Those bears, right. I've noticed they like to eat the freshest, most palatable forbs and flowers and grasses they can find. And that seems to be that fresh emergent growth. I mean, it's low in fiber, high in nutrients, and they just mow it down whenever they can find it. So there's a point to where the snow line hits the top of the mountain, and then it seems like they'll kind of find these little micro habitats where it's the greenest of the green and the lushest of the lush, and then pretty soon they'll just disperse out into their summer patterns. But when the snow melts early, that snow line goes up higher. Those bears tend to be a little more scattered. So it can be a little bit to your disadvantage in an early spring.
Oh yeah.
But an early spring allows you to get out and hunt earlier because they're kind of out of the dens and they're on that fresh grass a little earlier than normal. So it gives you more time to go find bears and hunt bears. But there's a point where they start to, it seems to me like in this area, they start to disperse potentially earlier than they normally would.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, absolutely. Are you typically like an opening day guy, or do you kind of let things kind of get to the green grass levels and the forb levels and the places you like to go, like all your little nooks and crannies? Do you like to kind of just wait till things get good there, or like no matter what, like opening bell, it's like, well, I'm going to hunt them wherever, it looks good, whether there's lots of snow or not much snow?
Yeah. I think I wait until the conditions are good in the areas I like to go hunt.
Okay.
But that can be like on a year like this, some of those spots were probably good by April 20th. Whereas in a normal snowpack year, they might not be that great until like May 10th.
Right.
So I being local, I have the luxury of just hanging back and observing conditions. And of course, part of my job is to go out and probe the snow and see how much is there. And it allows me to kind of check on conditions when I'm out in the field and get an idea of like when prime time might be. But I typically, on a normal snow year, I'll wait until I don't get too excited until about the first part of May.
Okay. What is the opener in Montana?
It's April 15th.
15th. Okay. That's same as Idaho.
Yeah.
And then when does it close?
Well, it used to vary. This is a little bit longer answer. I could just say June 15th and that would be 100% correct now.
Right.
But when I first started hunting bears in the area that I live, it used to close May 15th.
Oh.
Which was really early. It was on a normal year, it didn't really get good until that last week of the season. And then you'd start seeing more bears. More habitat was available. You could get out and get up to the glassing areas and you just had, better opportunities. And I don't know, it must have been 8 or 9, maybe could have been 10 years ago. They bumped the season out to May 31st here, which was great. I mean, it's perfect.
Yeah.
By that time, a lot of the avalanche chutes are melted out and you can hunt some higher country. You could just hunt more diverse terrain. You could get up on these big ridge lines that I like to hunt on. and find bears up on that stuff. But this year, I just read in the regs, we were extended to June 15th. It's never been June 15th there.
Oh, wow.
But I mean, almost all the way across the state. There's some units in Montana that are on a quota.
Sure.
And so like certain number of bears get killed or certain number of females get killed, they shut the unit down. But most of Western Montana is on that April 15th to June 15th schedule, which is, I think, pretty similar to most of Idaho as well.
Yeah. Yeah. I know when I was a kid, they used to shut, there were certain units that would close down pretty early. They would shut down the end of May. And then some of the backcountry stuff would be later in June. Just because some of that stuff you couldn't hardly get into, like the roads wouldn't be melted out in time to access a lot of that backcountry. Idaho, in the Bitterroots, the part of the Bitterroots where I grew up, it holds a lot of snow. We got a lot of big hemlock groves and a lot of north face stuff, and a lot of the roads are on the tops rather than the bottoms. There are some bottom roads, but man, if you want to try to get anywhere, you'll be going just fine. Like, man, this is great. You'll come around a corner in a hemlock grove, and there'll be a huge drift across the road that's a quarter mile long and 10 feet deep.
Yeah, that area is a wet part of the world, and it gets a lot of snow. I mean, I was looking at some of the snowtail sites in that area just the other day. There's 90 some inches of snow at some of those snowtail stations. And, they're having a pretty weak year.
Right.
So on a normal year, they're looking at over 100 inches of depth at some of those upper elevations. So yeah, that area is super wet. We're pretty wet up here as well. And I find the same thing is access gets in, I guess, you get impeded by dark corners that hold snow and you just can't get up the mountain.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And that's another, separate topic, elk hunting. If you want to get to the backcountry and set cams or just kind of hike around the places you'd like to run around and find elk in the fall, a lot of times you can't get to those places until July, in some of these parts of the Bitterroots. So it's disheartening because then your window of enjoying those places is so small. I love being in the mountains and looking for elk and for bears, and I just love being up there and to get to my favorite places. I sometimes can't get there till after the 4th of July. It's like, I burned up the whole month of June and couldn't be up there, but that's the way it is. That's the way it is. So tell me, what is it about bear hunting that you like? I mean, I can kind of make some assumptions, but what is it about spring bear hunting that just, and you can get as philosophical or as romantic of it as you want, but
you saw me scratching my chin, didn't you?
But, I know what I like about it, but I'm sure you probably like some of the same things, but.
Yeah, it's, it's, springtime is great. I like getting out and having an opportunity to just stretch the legs and go look for animals and go hunting, which is awesome. Anytime I can go hunt, it's great. But like spring bear hunting is just, I find it amazing because the forests and the mountains are so different. Like the songbirds are back. And
right.
they're mating, and you hear them all evening long. You'll have these really long, drawn out sunsets where it just the light slowly fades.
Yeah.
And it's really calm. And you're usually in like big forests, and the birds are singing, and it's just echoing. You can hear owls and thrushes, and it's just kind of a really cool, sort of magical time of the year to be out. You can hear the water rushing down out of these high basins, and it's just a sensual kind of overload that you don't get in the fall. And the warm days, the warm evenings, the long days, and it's kind of a leisurely activity too. It's like you don't have to get up at the crack of dawn or before dawn and hike a couple hours in the dark to get to your spot. You can if you want. I wouldn't recommend it. It's never really bought me a whole lot.
Yeah.
So it's like a lot of times I'll get up and have leisurely coffee and hang out and glass from camp and kind of get a day plan together and hike in and glass for the evening. I don't know. It's a different pace of a hunt. And bears are just cool animals. They're fun to watch. I love seeing sows with their cubs, and they're fun to hunt too. I love to stalk. I love to bow hunt them. I mean, rifle hunting them's pretty cool. I've shot a few with a rifle, but man, they're super fun to stalk with a bow and get in close. And I think more if people tried it more often, they would realize that it's a pretty obtainable goal is to sneak within bow range of a bear.
Yeah. That I feel like your heart probably has to be beating out of your chest with anticipation when it's almost going to happen. Like I can picture it now. Like, oh man, I think I might get this one. And you're closing in the last little approach. And I can't imagine. I bet your heart's just about ready to beat out of your chest. I mean, I think mine would be just with anticipation.
Yeah. Especially if it's a big one and you really want it bad. I mean, it's like anything else. That level rises and you get that surge of adrenaline and you have to focus and not screw up. Cause those big bears they're pretty cagey. They can hear really well and they can see better than a lot of people give them credit for, especially when you're within 100 yards and closer. They'll pick you out and they'll hear the tiniest little twig snap. And I don't know what it is, but even those big ones are pretty wired. And so I had one lift, he was feeding on this big grassy hillside and I was probably 50 yards away. And he stopped, he lifted his head and I thought he was going to turn and look my direction. So I hunkered down to get in a ball and my knees snapped. You know how cartilage will pop in your knees sometimes?
Yeah.
Just a light snap. And man, he whipped his head over there and just stared at me for minutes. Wow. And then he just got nervous and he never ran, but he just walked away at a kind of a faster walk than normal. He wasn't feeding anymore away from me. He was just walking away from me. And I couldn't believe he heard my knees snap. So to me, and he was a big bear. Oh, he was a giant.
Oh man.
But
that's fascinating.
Yeah, it's really neat though. I love to sneak in on them. It's fun and it really polishes your stalking skills because you have to throw it back, bring it back to the basics. It's like you have to locate them for one, and then you have to figure out what the wind potentially or guess what the wind could be doing on the mountain that he's on. And then you have to pick landmarks and make a plan and then sneak in. So I think it's a great learning opportunity for people to learn how to stalk game with a bow.
Yeah, man, you about got me hooked there. I was planning on going to do some rifle hunting this spring, and now I'm like, man, I want to do it with the bow. You just painted a pretty good picture. I want to kind of go back to that part about the eyesight. I know people, they're like, oh yeah, bears can't see shit. Their vision's not good. But if your rifle range, across a draw or a canyon, maybe they're not going to notice it as much, but it sounds like, you've got enough reps and up close to bears where they still notice things pretty easily.
Yeah, they do. Yeah. And I think you can get away with more movement, at a distance than you say you would a mule deer. It's over, 300 yards across a drainage or maybe even further. Mule deer will pick you out and elk. But bears, you can get away with more movement at that distance. But when you're up close, they'll definitely scrutinize you. And I think a lot of people, there's a big push to wear solids bow hunting. Mm-hmm. I think wearing camouflage when you're spring bear hunting is key because you're at close distances. They're in the open. You're kind of sneaking across the open too. And you just need to have that outline broken up a little bit. And I think wearing camouflage pays dividends. Okay. If it helps you out one time, it's worth it in my opinion.
Right. There's a lot of people that will say, oh, camouflage, for elk, and, camouflage is for people. You can hunt elk in solids, and which you can, but I'll tell you what, I've had some amazing close counters for a lot of different years, mostly in camouflage. Now, I've had some solid pants on before and camo top and got picked off. And I don't know if it was something else. Maybe from the elk standpoint, it was like I was silhouetted, or maybe I stood out, more than normal. But I'm a firm believer in camouflage, definitely.
Yeah, I am too. It's for elk at the distances that they get called into in this country, in North Idaho, in that brush country. I mean, we're talking like 10, 12, sometimes closer yards that they come in, and then they're stopped, and their eyeballs are just scanning around looking.
Right.
And I think the more you can blend in, the better off you'll be. It doesn't hurt.
Yeah, I agree. And I think elk, when they come in, they're not necessarily looking for a human. They're looking for their adversary, right? You called him in. They're looking for another bull elk. And if you're wearing like a big solid pattern, what else is solid? I'm like the side of a bull elk is pretty solid. It's a light color. So if I were to wear a solid, I'd wear something a little more subdued, like a green or something a little darker. Maybe not a real, like, even like a flat dark earth type color, as a top. Maybe I wouldn't do that.
Right.
So probably the same with bears, right?
Yeah, with bears, they're looking for other bears. I mean, they're looking for another bear that's coming into their area, and
right.
If it could be a female that the boar is getting excited about, or it could be a medium-sized boar that's scared of a bigger boar coming in. So they're looking for dark brown or black colored features or creatures. So I think if you can do anything, wear something to not look like a darker blob when you're at least bow hunting, you're better off. In Montana, you have to wear hunter's orange regardless of what you're hunting with.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm not a huge fan of that, but that's why I kind of like hunting Idaho from just the simplicity standpoint. You can go hunt anything you want without orange.
Right.
And, but in Montana, you have to wear the orange, 400 square inches above the waist.
Right.
So you have to kind of contend with that a little bit, but as long as you break up your outline and your form, I think you will get away. You'll get away with a fair bit with a bear.
Okay.
We've all seen plenty of gadgets and fads come and go, but here's one product that stood the test of time: Seafoam Motor Treatment. Lots of hunters and anglers know that seafoam helps engines run better and last longer. It's really simple. When you pour it in your gas tank, seafoam cleans harmful fuel deposits that cause engine problems. I'm talking common stuff like hard starts, rough engine performance, or lost fuel economy. Seafoam is an easy way to prevent or overcome these problems. Just pour a can in your gas tank and let it clean your fuel system. You probably know someone who has used a can of seafoam to get their truck or boat going again. People everywhere rely on seafoam to keep their trucks, boats, and small engines running the way that they should the entire season. Help your engine run better and last longer. Pick up a can of seafoam today at your local auto parts store or visit seafoamworks.com to learn more.
There's nothing like snook hook sets at dawn or catching a tarpon in the moonlight. Find your next fishing trip made easy on fishingbooker.com and experience the magic of the Sunshine State or any other destination on your fishing bucket list. Book a blue water adventure in search of sailfish or go snapper fishing with the kids. With over 6,000 captains and trips to choose from, planning your next one just got a whole lot easier. Download the Fishing Booker app on the Google Play or App Store, or visit them online at fishingbooker.com to book your trip today. Hey, Steve here. I want to talk about something crucial for any outdoor enthusiast, which is battery reliability. I've got interstate batteries powering my gear. I have interstate batteries in my camper. I run an interstate battery in my boats. I use interstate batteries because The last thing I want is to be left powerless. Interstate Batteries isn't just another battery company. They are outrageously dependable. In Alaska, the boat dealer that we use for getting stuff and repairs, he uses Interstate. Whether you're gearing up for hunting season, planning your next RV trip, or getting your boat ready, Interstate has the battery for all your needs. With over 150,000 dealer locations, the power you need is always nearby. Interstate batteries aren't just about power. It's about being prepared for any situation. Don't let a dead battery ruin your adventure. Head over to interstatebatteries.com, use their store locator, and equip yourself with a battery that won't let you down. When you're out in the wild or just on your daily commute, an Interstate battery is your key to a dependable journey.
Well, I don't want to sound like a tinfoil hat guy here too much on the orange, but this is, you always think about like, man, should I wear orange? Because ever since I was a kid, safety orange, in Idaho, like you said, it's not required. But sometimes I feel like, yeah, definitely orange is good because people will kind of see where you're at and maybe they won't shoot your direction if there's some animals in between you. But sometimes I feel like you got people like, oh, there's somebody in orange over there. I'm going to look through my scope at that guy and see if I recognize them or something like that. So almost maybe now it's a target, but
I think both things do happen.
Right.
Yeah. I think both of those do and have happened. I think the orange law is ridiculous. I'll go on the record and say that I hate it. I think it's absolutely pointless. If you want to wear it, there's nothing stopping you from wearing it, but I feel like I don't need to wear it. I'm not going to say anything else on that subject. I could go off on that.
No, I love your candor. Yeah, it's great. So you majority of the time you're bow hunting them more than rifle, but probably depends on the year, the location maybe.
Yeah. Sometimes I'll have friends up, and we'll, pack rifles, or I'll pack a bow and they'll pack a rifle, or vice versa. Sure. The last couple trips that I had people up on, there were some photography trips. So I packed a rifle, or I could be testing some gear too. Like last year I was testing a rifle for rock slide. So I packed a rifle. I wanted to use it and get as much time in the field with it. So I rifle hunted for bears. So I'm not against shooting a bear with a rifle. I've shot a handful now. Yeah. With a smoke stick, but I really like to bow hunt them. They're fun. Yeah. And it's one of those things where it's like, if I don't kill one, it's not a huge deal. My freezer's full of elk meat.
Right. It's all about the process, all about the
experience. Yep.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I love that.
Yeah. And I go out in the field every year with the intention of killing a bear, but I could probably kill one every year if I wanted. There's just sometimes I just don't feel like doing it. So I just walk away, it's like, it's fun to sneak in and not kill that bear and back out and just, have the experience of stalking it too. So I don't know.
Yeah. And that's people who are against hunting. They don't understand these kind of things. This kind of way they label us all, lump us all in this cold-blooded killers, bloodthirsty killers. And they almost like put us all in the same category as poachers or something. People are just bad people doing bad things. And
right.
But when you hear somebody talk about it, like you, it's you'd like to kill one, but you don't have to. And it's just the experience of being out there and chasing them around a little bit and getting close and observing. And you may make the decision not to, just because, I don't really feel like it. It doesn't really, if I take this bear's life right now, it's not going to make me happy today. Right. My cup is full.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Last year was a good example of that. Steve Drake.
Yeah.
The photographer. Yeah. So he came up and we were doing a hunt in Idaho, and we were seeing some bears, and we saw this, it was a nice chocolate bear on this hillside, and we ended up working our way around and getting above him. It was middle of the day and the wind was coming up, and we just I had my rifle, like I mentioned earlier, and I just kind of stalked down the hill a little bit and got within 100 yards or something. And like, that's a decent bear. I don't know. I might shoot him. He's really cool looking. Let's get a little closer. So we go down the hill a little bit further, and I'm like, let's get a little closer. And the whole time, Steven's just like, oh, he's just back behind me with his lens, shooting these images.
This is great.
Like stalking it. Yeah, and I got within 35 yards of him. And, I had my shooting sticks up, and I had looking at him through my scope, and I'm like, I just use a knife. If I would have had my bow, I probably would have tried to sneak a little closer, and then I would have shot him with my bow. But it just didn't feel right shooting him with my gun at 35 yards.
Yeah.
Because it took us probably, an hour to bridge that gap.
Yeah.
And spent some time at it. And I don't know, we let him walk. He got some awesome images of the bear. Eventually I snapped a little bear grass stalk, and he kind of looked up and got nervous, and he walked away, but then he circled above us and kind of came in from the side to kind of see what was going on.
Oh,
And, yeah. Steven got some great photos of him, but he got some great pictures of me with kind of the back of my head and shoulder kind of blurred out. And then the bear's just right there, kind of head up, looking around or head down feeding. It's pretty cool.
that is cool.
Yeah. So yeah, that's stuff like that I just love to do.
That's awesome. That's worth the price of admission right there, is just to get that close. And yeah, I love it.
Yeah. We're going to do it again this year with our bows.
Oh, yeah. Cool. Yeah. I can't wait to see the pictures.
Yeah. We'll see how it turns out.
So are you a boot leather, or are you a glass guy? Are you kind of a combo? Are you like, are you hiking a lot? Are you glassing a lot? Are you like hiking a lot to get to your favorite glassing points? Are you glassing from the truck and then making a big plan and diving off into the huge canyons to get over to them? What's your...
Yeah, that's a good question. I'm both. Man, I like to hunt big country, big open glassable country. And so I like to cruise and glass, ideal terrain and habitat for bears. Rocky, like early in the spring, I like looking at big rocky outcrops with grassy edges and stuff. And a lot of that occurs in these big canyons. So I'll hike into places and park my butt on the opposite side and glass where I can see a lot of it.
Right.
And plant a stock that way. Avalanche shoots are kind of the same way. I kind of hunt them I hunt them in a similar fashion. But I also like to hunt, and I've killed most of my bigger bears hunting old, not too old, but grassy logging roads.
Okay.
So cruising logging roads, miles and miles and miles of walking, and or riding a mountain bike.
Sure.
Looking for sign, looking for tracks, looking for piles of poop, and hunt, and just still hunting down those roads, just creeping down those roads right at dark, like within the last hour and a half of daylight.
Okay.
So yeah, I do both. I put a lot of boot leather on the ground, and I also, use my eyeballs a lot too. But there's not a lot of places I glass from the truck. It seems like those places get glassed a lot.
Okay.
They're few and far between here, and they're fairly well known. A lot of non-residents will see those places and just key in on them.
Sure.
And a lot of those places aren't really like quality habitat either. I end up seeing a lot of sows and cubs and some of that stuff that's very observable from main roads. And I don't know why. Maybe it's just not. Maybe those boars are too shy or something, or they just know they're not safe there, or they just prefer not to be there. I don't know, but yeah. Anyway, so yeah, I will glass from the road occasionally, but most of my better spots I hike in a ways before I have to, sit down and start picking apart the hillsides.
Right on. How often do you bivvy hunt for bears? Do you do that going for 2 or 3 days, or is it more of a just kind of a day tripping it thing?
Well, yeah, I'll do both. I like to set aside some time, take some time off of work and do some longer backpack trips. And yeah, I'll go out for like maybe 4 or 5 days,
Okay.
4 or 5 nights. I mean, those days are long, so that's a fair bit of hunting.
Yeah.
It seems like I can cover and glass a lot of country in the 4 or 5 evenings of hunting.
Sure.
It's a fun adventure. I love to do it. I don't think it's necessary,
Right.
but I do like it. And that's what Steven and I were doing last year. It was this big long ridge line we were camped on. We just kept moving our camp a little further, a little further, a little further. And there's no real water sources up there, but there's big snow drifts. We could get water, like no creeks, but we could get water off the melted snow and stuff.
Okay.
Yeah, it was super fun. But yeah, I like to do some backpack trips if possible. If the weather's usually pretty nice and the bugs really aren't too terribly bad until maybe, early June. Right. And even then they're not horrible. So yeah,
it's like later June. I've been in some backcountry, and man, the little black flies are terrible. Like you can't hardly open your mouth. And maybe it was that particular area specifically, but man, it was tough. Or sometimes, same with mosquitoes. Closer to the 4th of July, then there's been some places where, I mean, you couldn't hardly open your mouth without breathing some in. It was horrible. I would rather fight grizzly bears than mosquitoes, I think.
Yeah.
There's just no relief from them.
Yes. There's some places I go hiking in some of the local mountains here in July and August, and it is miserable. But yeah, the one insect that you just can't get away from when you're spring bear hunting is are the ticks.
Yeah. I remember back when turkey hunting when I was a kid in Florida, my Florida cousins used this stuff called muskal. And it was, and it came in a little tiny little plastic bottle, and it says 100% DEET. And I think they might have used that in Vietnam. It was that level of grade of goodness. And if you got any on your hands and then got it on your lips at all, your lips would go numb. So it must have been the good stuff. But you cannot buy 100% DEET anything anymore. I think it's so bad for you. I think they're like, we got to pull that off the shelf.
We went on a canoe trip up in British Columbia in late July, a couple years back. And there's a series of lakes where we're going through this big circuit, and we're talking Mosquitoville. And in the little store there, they had some of that 100% DEET. And I think it was the muskal. I think it was like in an orange bottle.
Yeah.
Worked well.
Keep away from your mouth and nose.
First
thing I do is rub it.
It'll melt plastic.
Yeah. First thing I do, get it on my lips. Okay. Dang it. I can't feel my lips now. That's nasty. So can you guys bait bears or run bears with dogs in Montana?
Baiting has never been allowed, and hound hunting has been allowed in certain areas just for the past 2 seasons now.
Right.
For the longest time, it's never been allowed. And now there's a few areas where it is allowed. There was something passed by the commission. I think it was 2 years ago, it seems like. I think some stuff down there in the Bitterroot country is open for hound hunting. And then, maybe more south central. I don't know. I haven't looked that close into where the hounds are allowed, but they tried to keep it out of most of the grizzly bear habitat.
Sure.
Which is most of western Montana.
Right.
So, but I think the Bitterroot, I know for a fact the Bitterroot's free and clear, and some of that stuff down by Superior, I think there's a little bit of area down there they're allowed to use dogs.
Okay.
But yeah, baiting's never been on the menu around in Montana, and not even in northern Idaho. I don't think it's allowed.
Certain areas in northern Idaho. So I think in that grizzly bear habitat, it's definitely not allowed.
Okay. Yeah. So like the Panhandle, it's not allowed.
So I think there's a line in the Panhandle where you can. but there's definitely a line where you can't, because of grizzly bear habitat. And,
yeah.
But that's smart. I mean, there's been a couple times people have shot grizzlies over bait in Idaho, on the border country there, in the past, it seems like, accidentally, it was like,
right.
And it was like maybe with an outfitter, like the guide would drop the hunter off at the stand and then be like, all right, I'll pick you up at dark type of thing. And grizzly came in and like, oh shoot, there's a bear. Bam. Well, that's a grizzly bear.
Ooh, yeah. Not good.
So, not
there's some paperwork in their future.
Yes, some testimonies and paperworks and photo sessions and all sorts of stuff.
I do not envy that. Well, even here with spot and stalk hunting, it seems like there's always a bear, grizzly or two gets killed by just mistaken identity.
Yeah.
Just locally here last spring, there was one killed. Collared bear. And I've got some information regarding that. I'll maybe tell you off the air.
Yeah.
I can't talk about it publicly right now.
Right. Well, I know we've hunted in Wyoming before, and there's a couple times it's like, well, you'll see a big bear on a hillside. You're like, and the color will look like a grizzly bear. You're like, oh, there's a freaking grizzly. So you sit down and analyze and study. Okay, look at his hump. And like sometimes the way they stand on a hill, like a black bear will get a hump on their back.
Absolutely.
Just by the way they're standing and their stance. And you got to watch them for a while. It's like, man, does he have a dish on his face? You're looking for all the telltale signs in it. 400 or 500 yards. It's kind of hard sometimes, especially if you don't have a spotter, or, if you're just looking through maybe your rangefinder or some like 8-power binoculars that are not real good. But, eventually, if you watch them long enough, it's like, oh yeah, that's not a grizzly, or oh, that is a grizzly. The telltales are there. But
yes, yeah, and I was talking about this a couple weekends ago about just sizing black bears and identifying, a good bear. The difference between a big male black bear and their shape they're very similar to a grizzly bear body profile, as far as like they do have a hump, a smaller hump, but they will have a humped shoulder, and their rear end, their rump is really rounded, and they come in all shades, and so do grizzly bears too. They they can be pretty dark phase too. I've watched several black bears at close range within a couple hundred yards. There was one I had to look at him for a long time before I could tell it was a black bear.
Wow.
A great big chocolate male, just huge hump on his shoulder. And he was just in and out of all this kind of this regen lodgepole. And I just could not get a really definitive look. And then finally, he even had an ear tag. I saw an ear tag. I was like, huh. But it ended up being a black bear. And I shot him.
Perfect.
Yeah.
How old was it? How old was that bear?
That bear was 14.
Oh.
Yeah. So they had captured him in a grizzly bear foot snare, and they'd collared him, and he was 9. Then I killed him a few years later.
Huh.
So it's pretty cool. The local grizzly biologist he was all excited to get the ear tag. Oh, hold on, let me run in my office and look up his number. I'll let you know exactly where we caught him and how old he was, because they pulled the tooth out of him. He had a tattoo on his lip.
Oh, cool.
He was like a gangster, He was looking pretty tough.
Flashing some gang signs.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. He's all tatted up and had packing some ear jewelry. But yeah, it was a cool bear, a really neat bear, big chocolate. But yeah, he looked a lot like he had some aspects of a grizzly bear.
Yeah.
But he had that very distinct black bear face, more rounded, less dish. That's what really gave it away.
Okay. How far away from the kill site was he tagged? With the ear tag?
Not far. I would say within maybe 2 air miles max.
Oh, really? Wow.
Yeah.
That's crazy. Crazy.
Yeah.
You hear stories about, collared bears or ear tag bears, they tag them one place and they'll turn up in a complete different mountain range or whatever. It's just like,
yeah,
wow, that thing had some wheels on him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've had some friends kill. A buddy of mine killed a bear that was tagged like 27 miles away. But we don't know if that thing got moved by itself or in a culvert trap.
Right. There's always that too.
Yeah.
We've all seen plenty of gadgets and fads come and go, but here's one product that stood the test of time: Seafoam Motor Treatment. Lots of hunters and anglers know that Seafoam helps engines run better and last longer. It's really simple. When you pour it in your gas tank, Seafoam cleans harmful fuel deposits that cause engine problems. I'm talking common stuff like hard starts, rough engine performance, or lost fuel economy. Seafoam is an easy way to prevent or overcome these problems. Just pour a can in your gas tank and let it clean your fuel system. You probably know someone who has used a can of Seafoam to get their truck or boat going again. People everywhere rely on Seafoam to keep their trucks, boats, and small engines running the way that they should the entire season. Help your engine run better and last longer. Pick up a can of Seafoam today at your local auto parts store or visit seafoamworks.com to learn more.
There's nothing like snook hook sets at dawn or catching a tarpon in the moonlight. Find your next fishing trip made easy on fishingbooker.com and experience the magic of the Sunshine State or any other destination on your fishing bucket list. Book a blue water adventure in search of sailfish or go snapper fishing with the kids. With over 6,000 captains and trips to choose from, planning your next one just got a whole lot easier. Download the Fishing Booker app on the Google Play or App Store or visit them online at fishingbooker.com to book your trip today. Hey, Steve here. I want to talk about something crucial for any outdoor enthusiast, which is battery reliability. I've got interstate batteries powering my gear. I have interstate batteries in my camper. I run an interstate battery in my boats. I use interstate batteries because the last thing I want is to be left powerless. Interstate Batteries isn't just another battery company. They are outrageously dependable. In Alaska, the boat dealer that we use for getting stuff and repairs, he uses Interstate. Whether you're gearing up for hunting season, planning your next RV trip, or getting your boat ready, Interstate has the battery for all your needs. With over 150,000 dealer locations, the power you need is always nearby. Interstate batteries aren't just about power. It's about being prepared for any situation. Don't let a dead battery ruin your adventure. Head over to interstatebatteries.com, use their store locator, and equip yourself with a battery that won't let you down. When you're out in the wild or just on your daily commute, an Interstate battery is your key to a dependable journey.
So is there a particular food that bears like that you're trying to find in, like, because you did mention some forbs and flowers, or is it just kind of the stuff that's kind of growing up right after the snow leaves?
I think there are definitely forbs and grasses that they key in on. Mm-hmm. So what I've noticed around here, they really love orchard grass.
Okay.
So it's especially when it's short, orchard grass will eventually get tall, sprout out, and it's not very palatable at that point. There's a lot of fiber and not very many nutrients, but when it's within that 6 inches tall and just comes up in these little clumps, but it has like a kind of a bright green bladed piece of grass or a head of grass that comes up. They love that stuff.
Okay.
Not to be confused with fescue, because they'll grow right next to one another, and they look kind of similar at a distance. So you're glassing across the hillside, and you'll see it's green as Ireland over there. And you go over there, and it's all this fescue with a little bit of orchard grass mixed in. Well, if you watch bears over on that hillside eating, at some point you'll see they're keying in on the actual orchard grass. That fescue they just don't eat.
They don't like it.
Deer and elk love it. but you know what I'm talking about. It's more wiry blades, but it still grows in those small little clumps.
Yep.
And it's a little darker green, I think. So yeah, if you can find orchard grass, definitely bears will be munching on it. If you're like walking logging roads or hunting in old clear cuts, skid trails, log deck landing areas, sometimes you'll find those have been seeded with clover, and black bears love that clover. The Forest Service doesn't use clover much anymore. They're going to more of a native seed mix, but some private timber company, industrial timber ground, sometimes they'll use clover just to seed their roads and skid trails for erosion control. So you might find that out there. If you can find clover, it's like crack to bears. They just love it.
Yeah.
Flowers, I've seen them eating the fresh flower heads off of the arrowleaf balsam root. They'll just walk. I have video of this great big boar just walking from plant to plant, and you just eat the yellow heads.
Oh man.
And just moving along. And I think that, those things are so high in nutrients, that it's preferred. Oh, glacier lilies, they'll eat the heads off the glacier lilies, the little yellow, like shooting star looking plants that come up right after the snow kind of leaves. You have a big snowdrift on a hillside, you'll see those things popping up right behind it.
Yeah.
I've seen them eat this plant called biscuit root. It's this really weird, wispy, tiny little yellow flowers that kind of come up in like these little fluorescents, almost like a picture of firework blowing up, and each little trailer would be like a little tiny flower. I've seen them eat that stuff. So yeah, I mean, and I think it's kind of, localized, certain areas grow certain forage. And so I recommend people just, if they do see bears, grazing on a hillside, just really pay attention to what they're eating. Or if you're out hiking around, walking through bear habitat, and you see bear sign tracks, and you just pay attention what's been bitten, what's been eaten. Like you'll see that orchard grass nibbled down to down to the basal area.
That's cool. The area I grew up hunting a lot, it's a little lower elevation in more canyon country, like lower canyons. And there was a lot of like wild onions and stuff like that. In that area. And they like those things. I mean, you could go walk over there and just pick one out, wiggle it a little bit, and you could pick out this little weird onion looking thing off the hillside. So they like that, and a lot of other things. And then later in this, like early summer, that June time, May, June, there were these old orchards everywhere from back in the homesteader days. Everybody had a little orchard at their homestead, and they had cherries or apples or plums, all those kind of things. And over the years, since then, bears have gone into those orchards and eaten all the different fruits, and then magically planted the seeds all over the landscape. So you see, cherry trees and apple trees and pear trees and plum trees all over this canyon country. Like, hey, there's apples, or there's cherries, and the right time of year, man, those bears just wreak havoc on those trees.
Yeah.
So
we kind of have that here as well, but I don't know, some of our little orchards are like in people's backyards.
Sure.
And I definitely see them coming down in the fall and hitting that stuff, especially if our huckleberries have failed, in the summer. So yeah, like it seems like our huckleberries start coming on like it's usually right around that first part of July in certain areas, and then where those huckleberries are coming on, the bears are on them from then till they're off the plant. Sometimes that's into late September.
Yeah, I've seen bears in late September a lot. When I'm bow hunting, you'll see black bears eating huckleberries. I seen this monster one. I drove right by him. We were driving from one spot to another. I looked over the hill, and there's this giant black bear sitting on its butt, and he's like sitting there scooping the brush into his mouth, eating the berries off. And I'm like, that's the biggest bear I've ever seen. That thing looked huge. So we kept driving and kind of snuck back. It's like, I didn't have a gun, and it was really, really open country. I'm like, I'm never going to get close enough to this thing. And I got to about 100 yards from him. And like you said, he heard a twig snap and he looked up and then it was just gone. I don't know why the vehicle driving by didn't bother him. It was a pretty traveled road. A lot of people drove on that road, and he was kind of in the shadows a little bit of some trees. And I think he just thought, it's just some huckleberry pickers or tourists driving around.
Right.
So but as soon as things got quiet and he heard me snap that twig, it's like game over.
That was something he didn't want to hear next to him.
Yeah. Yeah. So what kind of, if you were to recommend a rifle caliber for hunting bears, would you say, I know the greatest hunting rifle of all time is a 6.5 Creedmoor. Is that too much? Is that too much caliber for that? I mean, it's all over the internet.
That's all I read on the internet.
It depends on which camp you listen to. There's the ones that says the greatest and then the ones that say it's the worst.
Yeah.
But what should a guy look for in a good bear hunting rifle? What would you recommend?
Man, that's a good question. I mean, a 6.5 Creedmoor will work on bears, no problem.
Yeah.
Just have the right constructed bullet, put it in the right spot. Everything's hunky dory. I know people use stuff that's even smaller. There's a growing trend in certain circles to use smaller and smaller calibers.
Right.
Personally, I like big bullets. I own rifles from 6.5 PRC to a 375 Ruger.
Right.
And I love them all. 338 Win Mag is amazing. I have a 300 Ultra Mag that I absolutely love. I have a 28 Nosler. It just thumps lights out. 30-06, 270. Some of the old classics work great. But I would just say, make sure you have a well-constructed bullet that can break bones, because you might need to, bust through a shoulder. Bears have weird angles. They don't look, they're not like, they're kind of more roundy than a flat-sided deer or an elk.
Right.
And so it's hard to like pick a spot on a bear and know exactly what you're aiming at. So you might not hit exactly where you think you need to hit. And it might be in the front shoulder. You might have to penetrate through a fair bit of hair and maybe a little bit of fat and some jiggly meat to penetrate the vitals. But bears aren't overly big. It's not like shooting a moose. So yeah, I would say just any cartridge that will work that you would be willing to take on a mule deer hunt will work for a black bear.
Sure. Yeah, that's good advice, I think. Now, as far as shot placement, some people, they may not know where to shoot a bear, right behind the front shoulder, they say, but bear vitals are a little different than a deer or elk.
Yes, they are. They're tricky. If you're used to shooting into the armpit or the pocket of a deer or an elk, you're probably going to be too low and too far forward on a bear. So you want to back that up and go a little higher. So I've heard people say shoot for the middle of the middle. I would say just shoot forward of the middle.
Yes.
So maybe not quite right in the middle of his body, front to back, but maybe just a little forward of that middle line. And then, halfway up from chest to back. If you're right in the middle there, you're good. So the vitals sit back a little bit more than people think, or their shoulders move forward more,
right,
over their, up in front of their chest cavity.
They sit further towards like the brisket bone or whatever, they're the thoracic or opening maybe.
Yes, yeah, that's a good question, because that is tricky. Their anatomy is different than a whitetail deer or mule deer or elk. Stuff that people are used to shooting and butchering and breaking apart. So,
yeah. So let's say you got your bear down. What are you doing with all the meat? Are you taking the fat? Are you taking the bones? Are you taking the meat? What are you doing with it? Are you taking the hide?
Yes. So there's certain, states have certain requirements to what you got to check in.
Mm-hmm.
So in Montana, it varies by the region, but you need to report your kill, and some places, some areas you have to bring the hide and skull in to get checked. Some places you don't. It's a self check in. But regardless, I take the head, the hide, and I take all the meat. And if it has fat, I will take the fat. So the hides, I typically, I do have a bear rug. I take that back. The first bear I ever killed, I got a bear rug. Ridiculously expensive, and it's up in my attic that I never look at. And what to me, it was like, wow, why did I do that? But
they take up a lot of real estate, really.
Oh, and this bear was massive. It was my first bear ever, and it was my biggest bear still to this day.
Man. Oh man,
yeah, it's huge. So yeah, you have to have a big wall to put that thing on it. But the other hides that I take, I'll usually just get them tanned and hang them up in a display or something. It's kind of neat to have just like some bear hides hanging, if you're into that thing, or that sort of thing. But the meat, we eat it like almost all of it. I mean, it's great stuff. I don't like cut bear steaks out of it, but we'll sometimes I'll cut some roasts, and then I'll slow cook them and shred them and eat it more like a pulled pork, or slow cook it on a Traeger. And so it's, like you're doing a pork shoulder or something.
Yeah.
We'll cube it up, throw it in, and make chili out of it, or a stew, or like a pot pie, which is really good.
I bet. That sounds amazing.
Yeah, it is good. And a lot of it I'll just grind. I just have a spice mix that I use, and grind it into breakfast sausage. And it makes, and I'll add some bacon ends to that as well.
Oh yeah.
It is really good.
I'll bet.
It's my daughter's favorite breakfast meat by far. I mean, she likes bacon, but she loves bear sausage.
Yeah.
And
I did that same recipe with my mountain lion grind stuff. Is made breakfast sausage with the spices and the bacon ends, and hands down best thing I've ever had. As far as sausage goes, it was amazing. Yeah,
it's really good. And then the fat, like if it's a fat bear, fall bears are typically better for this, but spring bears can be as well. I'll render the fat, which is a very simple process. I thought it would take more effort, more work than what it actually does. But basically, we just cube it up, put it in a crock pot on low, or several crock pots, and then just strain the liquids out, and put them in a jar. And it kind of comes out like this clear, kind of golden liquid, but then it solidifies into this nice white, creamy, like shortening. And we just store it in these mason jars in our freezer and just pull that stuff out whenever we need anything that requires shortening. Or you want to short fry something like eggs or sear. If you have a nice elk roast that you slow cooked on the grill, and you want to like reverse sear it, I'll sear it in bear fat.
Oh wow!
Or rub a little on your baked potato before you bake them. It just gets the skins nice and crispy. But my wife makes like biscuits with it, so like pastries, pie crust. Makes an amazing pie crust. It's phenomenal. I was very skeptical of it at first, and she made a pie crust, and I'm a convert for sure.
Yeah. My uncle, he always used to swear by that. He used it for everything. He said the same exact thing. He's like, if you want really good pie crust, you make it with bear grease. But he'd put it on his boots. He would put it in And he was for stuff to bake with. He would cook with it. Like he used that
People
stuff for
make
everything.
soap. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and it's kind of a lost art sometimes, but I think, like Clay Newcomb, he's got a really big, large audience in his podcast, and
Yeah.
he talks about all the cool stuff you can do with Bear Grease. Well, Bear Grease podcast, but
Oh, right. Yeah.
but I think
There's that.
People are starting to understand, bears are very edible and they're very desirable to hunt, to eat. They're just not. I feel like at some point bears might have got a bad rap. Stupid bears, they're not fit to eat. Like I've heard people say that. Like I would never eat a greasy old bear. I'm like, really? The bear meat I've had is amazing.
Well, I think it comes down to what they've been eating.
Oh, that's
so. I think if it's been eating salmon out of an Alaskan salmon stream for 3 months, I bet it's going to taste like fish.
Yeah, probably not going to be good.
Yeah, probably not going to want to eat that. But if it's been eating huckleberries for 3 months, I'll tell you what, when I cut up a fall bear, it smells like fruit.
Oh.
I mean, the meat literally smells like fruit. It is amazing.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, huckleberries are very overpowering scent and flavor profile as well. Like if you have huckleberries, and even if you like double Ziploc bag them in the freezer, you crack your freezer open a few weeks later, it's like, dang, I smell huckleberries in the freezer. Like they're like potent.
Yeah, they are.
It's no surprise that a bear's meat and fat would smell like.
Yeah, and it smells really good, and it tastes good too. I've never had a bad one. I did kill a bear. So Montana used to like offer these trichinella test kits, and you would like cut out a chunk of the tongue and put it in, they'd have like a little Ziploc with some salt, and you throw it in the bag and seal it up and send it off to the lab. And you get your test results back. Well, I found out that most bears in Montana have it. It's just the degree that what they have it, like the density of the cysts in them. This one particular bear, it was a pretty old male. I had sent the test off, and I got a phone call. It was like a Sunday afternoon. I remember it was a warm spring day. I happened to be in the house getting a drink of water or something, and the phone rings, and it's the guy from the lab in Billings. He's like, "Hey, I'm just calling you about your bear." I was like, "Yeah, what's going on?" He's like, "Yeah, have you done anything with that thing yet?" I'm like, "Nope. Haven't. I'm just it's in my freezer. I've been waiting to get the results." He's like, "Oh, don't eat that bear. That thing has 128 larvae per milligram of it in its tissue."
Oh, wow.
So a milligram of tissue is tiny. And he counted up to 128 per milligram. He's like, "Go ahead and throw that bear away. You've got our permission to not utilize the meat."
Wow.
Like, good to know.
Yeah, that is good to know.
So there is that aspect of it could be off-putting to some people.
Right.
So
that's why you got to cook it well done, right?
Yeah, right. You just cook it. Yeah.
160 degrees.
That's what they recommend.
Yeah.
I did see a chart one time, depending upon, it was the temperature and time. Mm-hmm. So if it was a lower temperature, it had to be a longer time. I don't know how valid that is. I don't even know where it came from. It could be just some guy on Pinterest made it up. I don't know. But 160, I think I've heard that is, to be safe.
Okay.
But if you're making breakfast sausage, you're going to cook it well done. And if you're making a pot pie, so everything that I make with bear meat, I make sure it's a dish that can be cooked well done.
Yeah.
And not, be ruined.
Yep. We like to take it and just kind of cut up in little chunks, they're about 1.5 inches, 2 inches in, almost like kind of nuggets, and then put them in a Instapot, right? Oh. Put a bunch of seasoning on that, put it in the Instapot. And so that'll cook it really fast. It'll like shorten the time instead of like sitting there for a few hours in a crock pot. Then it shortens that time and it breaks the meat down. It cooks it, kills everything in it. But then we make like a stroganoff out of it. So you can put it over either noodles or rice. And it's amazing. My son-in-law, who's was raised non-hunting, in a non-hunting family, never had wild meat before until he became part of our family. And he's had deer, elk, and everything. But when he had that bear stroganoff, he's like, "Oh my God, this is like the best thing I've ever eaten in my life." It was so
nice.
good. So
that's awesome.
You should try that with one of your recipes here later on after you kill your big spring bear, or not.
Yeah.
Or
No.
you may not. You may decide not to shoot a big spring bear. Just
that's true. Yeah. I might. I think it's time. Actually, it is time. I'm out of bear breakfast sausage.
Oh,
so yeah, it's time.
It is time. Yeah.
Another thing I really want to try, and I've never done it, is can some of it.
Oh yeah.
I've heard people canning it. Like Cody Rich, I think, is talking about canning bear, and I'm kind of curious. Sounds good.
Yeah.
I'm willing to try it.
Elk meat. I'll can elk meat. Like I'll take the neck meat, which is always kind of tough and kind of weird, and especially on a big bull. Then I found though the smaller the pieces you cut it, the better it's going to turn out. So like that 1.5, 2 inch, nuggets or whatever is optimal. If you put bigger, about the size of smaller than a golf ball, let's say, if it's any bigger than a golf ball, then it doesn't break it down as good, especially on that really tough cuts. But man, you stuff a mason jar completely full, like as much meat as you can, but leave enough room at the top. And it's simple. I take like a spoonful of Montreal steak seasoning, dump in there, screw the lid on, and then you can it. And when you take it out, it's like the best beef pot roast you've ever had in your life. It's amazing. So I can imagine like bear would be same thing, and probably but better.
Yeah, bear's a pretty rich meat.
Yeah.
So I could see how it would be really good canned.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I'll have to try that. A shot.
Yeah. Well, we've hit over an hour here talking about bear hunting. I think we could probably get 2 or 3 hours in really easily.
For sure.
But do you have any closing thoughts on bear hunting to leave our listeners with?
I guess I would just say bear hunting is real hunting. I mean, there's a lot of people that poo-poo it, and just go try it. It's fun for a variety of reasons. I think it's super rewarding. So if people are thinking about it, Kim and Han, they're on the fence, just try it out sometime, and just see how it fits you. And it might not fit you, but you might just become smitten with it and just want to do it every spring when the flowers start blooming and the green hillsides start arriving. Birds start singing. God, it's a great time to be out in the mountains. So I'd just say give it a shot if you're a little bit curious about it.
Yeah, man, I agree with that 100%. I don't know how many times I've been out in the spring, whether it's bear hunting, turkey hunting, whatever, horn hunting, morel mushroom hunting. You just like there'll be a very moment in time where you're like sitting on a warm hillside and the temperature is just perfect and you hear the birds chirping and everything. It's like, man, what a time to be alive. This is awesome. And usually those are the trips. I may or may not even see a bear, turkey, mushroom or whatever I'm after, but it's just so fun to be out in the springtime. It's my second favorite season. September is my favorite season, of course, but springtime is a very close second. So
I'm with you 100%. Yep. September and then like May. Just the smells too, man. The green leaves coming on. It's amazing. I love it.
Yeah. The flowers.
If the elk bugled and we had a season in May, that might be my favorite.
Oh yeah. Yeah, definitely. Well, thanks so much for coming on again, Josh. Anybody want to look you up on Instagram? What's your handle on there?
It is Josh_Boyd_MT as in Montana.
Okay.
And pretty easy to find, I think. If you just did a little search for Josh Boyd, it should pop up.
And Josh uses Instagram like Instagram was made to be used, right? Like when we first started using Instagram, pretty pictures, a cool little quote or something, and like those kind of things. It's not all these razzle dazzle reels that you see now. It seems like,
I try.
I do appreciate, your content on there because it's still really good.
I try to steer clear of reels as much as possible. I'm not into it, but that's not the reason I joined Instagram. But yeah, or I guess people could find me on Rockslide too. You could hit me up there on that website, rockslide.com, ROK slide. And I'm a staff writer over there. I do reviews and stuff. So you can find me over there. And username is just Josh Boyd there as well. So
yeah,
easy to track down in those two spots. And that's about it.
Sure. And if you guys like reading, articles and stuff, definitely give Josh's articles a read. I said it before in our other podcast, but Josh has a very good writing voice, and it makes for a good read. I always enjoyed your articles back when you used to write for Extreme Elk Magazine for us. So,
yeah, thanks, man. Appreciate that.
I always looked forward to your next article. I was like, oh, what's it going to be this time? It's so good. So, anyway, I won't keep you anymore tonight, and appreciate your time. So we'll see everybody next time.
All right, sounds good. Thanks, Dirk.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, we're going to take a little break here and talk about interstate batteries. Now, if you're like me, enjoying the great outdoors, you need gear that is as reliable as it gets. That's why I power my adventures with interstate batteries. I use interstate batteries in my boats. I use interstate batteries in my camper. Great for your truck, too. From Alaska to Montana, they're outrageously dependable. Battery is essential. With over 150,000 dealer locations, finding one is easy. For all your vehicles, land or sea, choose Interstate. Head to interstatebatteries.com and find your power today.
Outdoor adventure won't wait for engine problems. Things like hard starts, rough performance, and lost fuel economy are often caused by fuel gum and varnish buildup. Seafoam can help your engine run better and last longer. Simply pour a can in your gas tank. Hunters and anglers rely on Seafoam to keep their engines running the way it should the entire season. Pick up a can of Seafoam today at your local auto parts store or visit seafoamworks.com to learn more.